Hello, my conscious evolutionaries, and welcome to Fika. Welcome to my home. As you can see today, we are not at a campfire, but we have a very beautiful fire in the form of my so cozy stove. So I thought today I try to entertain you a little bit from here for a number of reasons that I will explain as we go along. But if you're new here, welcome. A fika is the Swedish term for having a cup of coffee or tea or another lovely warm beverage with something nice and sweet to go along with it together with other people. So it's this very cozy moment that we try to have together. And I know I've been absent for a while. I was trying to do it every week, but I guess we'll see how it goes. I'm at a place right now where we kind of have to feel through things and see how it goes. But I do love doing these sessions with you guys. So they will be here for sure. Just the frequency is a little bit on uncertain at the moment. So make yourself comfortable. Make sure you get yourself a lovely cup of something that you love and something nice and sweet. It is the end of year, and that in Sweden means they have pepparkakor, which are so lovely. It's kind of similar to speculoos, if you know that, if you're from Holland or Belgium, but still a little bit different, a little less sweet. And normally I try to not eat gluten, but this time of year I like to make some exceptions for some holiday delights. And the topic that I want to talk about today in our session is also very much related to this holiday season, because yesterday we had the Feast of Lucia, which has everything to do with a woman bringing the light. And we are approaching winter solstice, which means that we are in the northern hemisphere going into the shortest day of the year. And then after 3 or 4 days, we will have Christmas, which is actually the return of the light. That's why they put the birth of Jesus Christ on top of that date, because that's the moment that the days actually start to get longer again. So we have these 3 very short, dark days, and then at Christmas it finally starts to get longer again. And then we're fully into the return of the light and the days getting longer again. And so that inspired today's theme, with a big thank you to Peter for also suggesting that I should take this into consideration, which was a very good idea, I think. But talk to you about all of these concepts that we have in the spiritual community that are related to the light, like things like enlightenment and being a light worker. Because, as per usual, there are many misconceptions when it comes to these, if we look at them from the perspective of conscious evolution. So let's start by having a sip. I have a bit of a cold as well, and it's been going on for a while. So if you hear me making weird noises, it's just like the cold. And so I have to make sure that my throat stays extra lubricated. Let's see where to start, because as I was preparing for this episode, I realized there are a few things that I want to talk to you guys about. And not all of them have to do with our topic. And this has been a little bit of a struggle for me to not lose people in the beginning of the episode, because most people on YouTube, you come for a very specific purpose and you want this specific piece of information and you want this like really quick and very, very clear. And then, you want to learn this in 5 minutes and then you want to know it and you want to move on. But the things that I talk about, they are not things that you can learn in 5 minutes or understand in 5 minutes or even 10 minutes or even an hour or even several hours. Because this is one of the things that creates this big problem in the spiritual community, because all we're doing is we're trying to understand these things from our mind. And that doesn't work. For these things to be truly understood, we have to understand them from many, many perspectives and many, many angles. But more importantly, not just from a mental perspective, but from a fully embodied, energetic, emotional, and cellular level. And that's what I came to realize as I was working on this episode, and where I felt that I kind of had gone wrong with the last episodes, because I started to get in my head about what YouTube expects and what people on YouTube expect, and that I should get more to the point and quicker to the point so that people don't run away. But as I was working on this episode, I started to understand that these are more transmissions and not so much theoretical explanations. It's not a theory lesson as this and this and this is how it works, and now you do ABC and then you get it. They're transmissions to help you absorb these concepts and these ideas each time on a deeper and deeper and deeper level. So I am just going to go with what feels right for me to do, even though that might go against what most people expect. But if you want a quick fix, I am the wrong person anyways. But if you want to go deep and if you really want to get to the root and really get to that fully and deep understanding of things, then you might want to stick around, because that is something that I can help you with. Let me even take a little peek, because I was doing all of these preparations and I wanna make sure that you get all of it. Hmm. I think I said most of what I wanted to say, or what I had come through yesterday. But yeah, try to take this as an energy, try to take this as an experience, as a space holding. Of course, listen to the words of course, use your mind as well, but not just your ears and your mind. Try to listen with your entire body, with your entire being, and try before the voices come up. Yes, but ta 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 ta. In my new course, they call it the mind monkeys, which I do really like that term. But just if you feel them coming up, if you feel yourself getting defensive, try to just relax, try to let it in and see what it brings you. Because this topic today, in particular, is something that invokes a lot of resistance into people. Because this idea of good and bad and light and dark is so deeply ingrained in us through our last 2000 years of religion that it is very, very hard for people to open themselves to this and to fully listen and allow themselves to understand. Because the reality is light and dark has nothing to do with good and bad. This is a very big distortion that has been created, which has some understandable roots. Because if we go back in our history, when we were completely tribal and very, very limited in our tools and protection mechanisms, when we actually still had natural enemies, of course, the dark was a much more dangerous time than the time of day when we had the light, because in the light, at least you can see the danger coming, and in the dark, you can't. So, because of that, we grew into this connotation where we started to connect dark with bad and light with good. But this is just a human fabrication, and it has nothing to do with the reality of what we actually live. And it's a very, very hard concept to explain because we are so attached to it. So many people are attached to the idea of being a light worker, of being this very good person compared to other people who are bad or worse or, well, yeah, not good. And then also this other concept of enlightenment, where so many people still believe that the purpose of a human being is to become enlightened, which it is absolutely not. And this is terminology that still comes from much older cultures who had much less science and much less understanding of all of the scientific principles and less words for everything. And a lot of these teachings come from people with, I don't know, visions, some psychic abilities, channels, who then get words from beings in other dimensions who experience reality different from us. They try to communicate from us, from their perspective. And so a lot of this communication then uses these words like enlightenment and more light and ascension and higher dimensions and all of these things. But there have been human beings who have had a very high level of consciousness, and they would be called enlightened. But it's not because some human beings have experienced this that that's the purpose of every human being. Every human being is here with a unique purpose. We're not all here for all of us to become enlightened. That would be absolutely disastrous, even. First of all, we really can't, because it literally means to become the light, which would literally mean you would have to leave your physical body behind. If you fully want to become enlightened, you have to die. So there is no way that that's our purpose. Now, there are people who have come closer, but for most of them, that's also usually a temporary state, because the purpose of being human is to be incarnated. And then usually for a period of time, because they have a specific purpose as to download some teachings or anchor a specific thing. But then afterwards, usually we return back to our more human state of being, which is perfectly fine, because that's actually what we're here to do. We're here to be human beings. We're here to be incarnated. We're here to be experiencing a physical reality through a physical body. We're not here to be blobs of light. Blobs of light, they have all other dimensions. This one is specific for incarnation and for experiencing through the physical realm. So if you want to contribute to this evolution, and if you want to get closer to your purpose in life, I would suggest to really let go of this idea of needing to become enlightened. Because it has this external focus. It starts from this principle that you're not good enough as you are. It has this energy that you have to become something else or someone else or something that is, I'm not sure what the word, but higher than you, better than you. And when you're operating from that energy, you're moving away from who you actually are. So you're moving away from your authentic self, which means that you're moving away from your purpose and from your mission and from the unique human being you came here to be. So if you feel called to read about people who have been called enlightened, or if you feel like there's interesting information in what they have shared, by all means, use it. That was the reason that they came close to enlightenment, so that they could have that and share that for the people who would need that later on. But it is only for a very, very, very few people that are actually meant to do that in life, so that they then can have this information come forth for the rest of us to be able to use it. And unless you're 100% sure then that's like your authentic purpose, then I would suggest just to let go of that idea, and instead of trying to become enlightened, try to become more embodied. Try to become more familiar with yourself, your energy, your body, your resistance, your shadow. And in that, find your own light. And if you want to call yourself a light worker, I'm not saying that's wrong per se, but that very much depends on what that means to you. And from what I've witnessed and from what I've seen, is that for most people who call themselves that, instead of contributing to unification and higher consciousness and more embodiment, it contributes to the division and the problems that we are currently facing. Because most people who function from wanting to be a light worker, they want to do it because they are against the dark. They see the dark as problematic. They do it from this definition that I started with. I am a light worker. I am against the dark. I am the good one and I am against the bad ones. That is what it inherently means for most people who use these terminologies. One of the reasons when I discovered Matthias de Stefano 10 years ago that made me so happy, and that made me feel like this person is someone that I really can learn from and someone that has very valuable information for me, was the fact that he said, well, I am not a light worker, I work for neutrality. And that for me resonated so deeply because I come from my background of my training as a fascia therapist, from having been trained in active neutrality, as the fascia is our neutral tissue in our body. And that's why so much healing can come from there, because it can integrate everything, because it's constantly in the state of neutrality where it can see all perspectives, absorb them, integrate them, and then expand again. And that's why it has all of this healing power and life force in it, because it can operate from that level. And so for me, that is something that has always been so close to my personal understanding and knowing, and why I got into this work in the first place and why I do what I do. Because I also stopped saying, like, I am not a light worker. I work for neutrality. I work for integration. I work for conscious evolution. And the conscious perspective is that if you strive to go to the light, what most people do when they strive for enlightenment or strive for being a light worker. Okay, so how do I explain this? Well, I have a big light right behind the camera right there, okay? Um, if I start walking up to that light, you will start to see my shadow getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So if I move towards the light, if that's my aim, and I go like, the light is good, I have to get to the light. That's where everything is. I need to go to heaven. I need to go there. That's that light, that white light. That's the good thing. I start to cast a huge shadow for which I don't take responsibility because I am so focused on that light and I am really unaware and unconscious of what's going on behind me. And everything behind me gets covered in darkness. Not because the darkness is at fault, but because I am being unconscious of what's happening. And then all of that shadow that is being cast upon other things and upon other people. And when a lot of people start doing that, something that's called the collective shadow starts to develop. And then there are people who are going to start manifesting that collective shadow in our reality. And that is what we are calling the bad people, even the most horrific, terrible, awful deeds that have been done in all of humanity. They come from a place of manifestation of our collective. Every human being is born. God, what word do I have to use for this? Innocent? Blameless? I don't know, like every baby is a baby. Like there is nothing that is already inherently bad about that tiny little baby human being. And people who start doing horrific things later on in life, no matter how horrific, it always comes from a place of pain within themselves. Sometimes there might be, I don't know, some kind of flaw in the system that can happen as well. But again, that's some sort of manifestation. Where people have like certain parts of the nervous system or the brain that are literally not developed that could give you empathy and stuff like that. So that's I don't have the answer how to deal with that, okay? But for most people, it comes from trauma that was projected onto them by other people who were being unconscious about what they were doing to them or were projecting their own pain, and that then further got distorted and it grew into yeah, a very tormented human being who then started doing horrific things. So as long as we stay so unconscious as not to recognize that that is actually what is going on, and to think of those human beings as the dark ones, the bad ones, the ones that we have to fight because we are so much better and everybody should be like us, like the light workers, like the ones that are fighting for the light side. Nothing is ever going to get fixed or solved. That's not how you are going to ever have peace, because that's what light workers will always say. They want peace. But as long as you make a division into the light is good and the dark is bad, you are part of creating the war because you are against the other side. And you're not seeing the reality of that other side, that they are being the manifestation of our collective shadow that you're perpetuating by going towards like, oh, that light is so good. But also, please don't take that as to I am saying that the light is bad. No, I'm saying there is basically no good or bad. And I also said, like, it's not per se wrong to want to call yourself a light worker. Because if you see yourself as a light worker because you work on your own light within yourself, which is basically your responsibility, which is what you could say becoming your authentic self, which is the same as saying as becoming the change you want to see in the world. If you become your own light, if you fuel your own light and you live your life based upon shining your light, not because that makes you good or better than someone else, but because that's what you're here to do. You are here to bring that specific light into this world. That means that you're like, it's like your flame of passion, it's like your flame of joy inside of you. That's your light, and that shows you what you're supposed to do here. If you get that flame burning because you feel like you should be a painter and make paintings, then that's what you should do. And somebody else will feel like they have to be a musician, and somebody else will feel like, oh well, I have to help people with this, and I am like, all of these things are what makes, how do I say this? That's what makes that we fulfill our purpose. That's how we know what's meant for us and what's not meant for us. But it has nothing to do with fighting against darkness. It has nothing to do with saying those people are wrong, and if we punish them or if we can take that out, then our world will be a good place, will be a safe place. No, everything comes back to ourselves, what we live, that we bring ourselves back to our authentic self, that we get familiar with our own shadow so we don't cast it upon others so that it has to like pop out everywhere else because we're not aware of what we're doing uh, in the part of ourselves that we're not seeing. And if you are that light, if you shine that light, then you shine 360 degrees. So then the kind of shadow that you cast is a very different shadow. And yes, you will still, well, the thing is, you don't cast a shadow then. If you shine 360 degrees around, if you're kind of, by a lack for a better metaphor, become a 360-degree ball of light, then you yourself are not casting any shadow anymore. But this is where a lot of people then get confused, because then they start to get bad reactions from other people, because then other people who are not living in their authentic self, who are not living their light, they will start to cast the shadows. And then they might come at you in not such a pleasant manner, because now all of a sudden they start to kind of become aware of where they need to work on themselves, what kind of issues they have. And they're getting reflections through you that are confrontational for themselves. So I understand that that is sometimes a phase where people get quite confused then, where they go like, I'm finally in this place where I feel empowered and I'm living my passion and so on. And all of a sudden people start reacting not so positively to me because they cannot use you the way they used to use you, and because now they're kind of confronted with, oh, all of a sudden this person stepped up their game and I'm kind of lagging behind. So there can be reactions out of there, and they can then kind of start to cast shadows as well. But that basically is not your responsibility. That's just the effect of the cascade that eventually will lead to everybody starting to pick up on their own light. And that might have a little bit of turbulence in it, but I just wanted to mention that because if you're somebody who is in that space, to not be discouraged by that. It's not a bad thing. It's just that because now you're shining your light, some other things are being exposed, and that's for other people to work out, basically. And you just stay in living your example from there. Mm. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps. Because it's one of these things that, because we're so deeply programmed in this religious thinking of good and bad and light and dark, that even then, if we turn to the spiritual field, we take that with us and we just keep perpetuating that. And it's something that is absolutely opposing conscious evolution. So that's why I feel so strongly about it, and why I feel it's so important that people really start to understand that. And why I probably, as these episodes go on, will repeat myself a lot. But that's just so that these things, they can, each time that you hear them, they will start to slowly enter into deeper and deeper and deeper levels until they kind of become part of you, and that you can really get a sense of what that means, rather than this is a piece of information that goes in my mind and my mind places it in this certain little box that I have created for it, that fits my narrative, that fits with my traumas, that fits with the filters that I have created for myself through my experiences, whether it's right or wrong. It's just, this is what my system does. And if you allow yourself just to take this time and to absorb these sessions, this will start to get deeper and deeper and deeper in your system, where one, then it's no longer this box of information in your head, but it becomes like a principle that's embodied in your system, that you start through your embodiment of it to understand and to live. So the dark is not the problem. It's even, you cannot see much of it, because I had to put the light for the camera and everything. But I have my Christmas lights basically out from, let's see, the equinox as we go into autumn until the equinox when we go into spring. So half the year, basically, I have my Christmas lights on, and we have different configurations for when it's actually Christmas, and we haven't really gotten around to putting the Christmas tree. We have said, okay, we're going to do it tomorrow. And then we put it a little different, and we also put the other really Christmassy decorations up. But the lights, we live here in Sweden, which is, compared to the rest of the world, like pretty north. So as soon as we are between the two equinoxes on the dark side of the year, like it gets dark a lot. And then the lights are so pretty. It's completely useless to have them in the other half of the year because then it's basically light all the time. But it's only in that darkness that we can see that beauty of the light. During the day, you cannot see the stars. Even here, like, we're not really still not used to it, but in summer, you barely see any stars because it never really gets dark. And then once we pass this equinox and it starts like fully get dark at night again, you're like, oh wow, there are the stars again. And even here where we live right like right now, there's still quite a lot of light pollution. A lot of people have like a lot of light around their houses and everything. So we cannot even properly see the northern lights, or we couldn't even not see this as much stars as we would like. The dark is not the thing to avoid. The dark is where you find the beauty of the light. And that's why I love these holidays so much. I'm such a sucker for all of the very old traditional Christmassy decorations and traditions. And we were watching the Lucia concert on TV yesterday, and it was so beautiful. And it was all this old school, natural feelings. Like moving here, it made me realize even where like the Christmas balls they come from. Like here when it freezes, sometimes there's still apples on the trees, and then you see like they're like these red and golden balls with like these frozen crystals on top, and you can say, of course, that is where like the Christmas tree ball decorations come from. And like my grandma, she used to have birds in her Christmas tree. And here then you can see like the little birds also with like the frosty things that they're covered as they're trying to still eat the apples that are in the tree. So that's what we've actually been celebrating then in this deep, darkest part of winter, where we can find this appreciation and beauty that is in the light, because there's this big contrast where we can see it, and we can hold space for it, and we can turn inside and find that light inside of ourselves and live for that and focus on that and let that shine, because that is what will make the big difference in our evolution. It's not about what anybody else is doing but you. It's about you tending to yourself and your own light and your own shadow. I completely forgot to eat a cookie. So I'm just gonna take a moment, take a second, see if there's anything else that I forgot to tell you. And if you have anything going for yourself, also enjoy. Mm. There is one thing that I saw in my notes that I do think is worth mentioning a little bit more specific. I feel I referenced it a little bit, but I feel like I didn't say it specifically. And I think that might help a lot of people if I say it specifically. Because if you're still torn into there are good people and there are bad people, and if I am not a good person, then I will be a bad person. But most bad things are done in the name of being good. I also referenced this in, I think, the last video I did. But what I really wanted to say is that nobody who's functioning from their authentic self will ever go and do, for a lack of a better word, bad things or horrible things, or intentionally going to hurt somebody, attack somebody, go destroy something, do these horrific things that we think of when we think of horrific things, like, I don't know, murder, rape, plundering, I don't know. Because that's like, that's this place where people come from. Like, if I don't hold myself to be this good person, then I will turn into that. And I'm here to tell you, no, you won't. Like, if you are coming from a decently healed place in yourself and connected to your authentic self, to who you really are, to the unique puzzle piece that you are, to the unique human being that you are, you will never ever go and do things. People who do these things, they're coming from a very hurt, traumatic place. And I'm not saying that people who live from their authentic selves will never encounter anything that hurts them or that maybe even traumatizes them a bit. But then you will also probably come from a more conscious place where you can kind of see that and hold yourself responsible for bringing yourself back to a place of alignment, of healing, and so on. And if there are like enough people surrounding you are also coming from their authentic self, they will, in that part, kind of protect you from yourself, I guess. And also, if you're surrounded by people who are coming from that place, that in and of itself will start to create more healing. So, this is a fear that is a projection of what we're living right now, and not what a world would look like if people were to come from a conscious place and from an authentic place and from a more healed place. Because if we are coming from that place, then what is best for you is also best for everyone else. And that doesn't mean your feelings will never get hurt. But it means that we can live in a place where we can accept that, where we can hold space for that, and where we can move through that. And so that then if your girlfriend breaks up with you, it will hurt for a bit, but you will soon start to see that, okay, she could already see that we were not right for each other. And if she doesn't feel that she's not right for me, then that must mean I'm not right for her either. And that must mean there is somebody else out there who is right for me. And right now, people might not always take that gracefully in the beginning, but the more people that can start living from that place, and the more of a healing ripple effect this will have, the sooner we will turn our society to a place where that becomes the norm and not the exception. So that is the message that I want to leave with you for this season, for this time of year that is so often connected and thought of and related with peace and community and coming together and bringing the light. And all of those things can be beautiful things, but they have to come from the right place and the right understanding, because otherwise they're just continuing, perpetuating the problems. So that is my wish. That is my wish to you. That is my wish to the world, that we can all start to understand this. And that this truly may start to come into fruition for all of you, for our entire society, and for our entire planet. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. Also hit that bell notification, then you will be notified when I upload a new video. If you want to get in contact with me, all of my social media channels and my website and everything you can find in the description. If you feel like you're struggling right now and you need support, you need help navigating that shadow that you're becoming more aware of, feel free to reach out. I have a number of different options, from individual sessions to rebalancing journeys, where we do a 4-month deep dive to make sure that we get the good lay of the land and that we can get you on track to your authentic self. If you want to give yourself that gift for the new year, that can be, I think, the best Christmas present anyone can give themselves. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful end of year, and I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.